What's going on, guys? Welcome to Everything Always. My name's Michael Roman, aka All Fires Now. You may have seen that the Russos have been doing several interviews as of late and talking pretty candidly about Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars. Well, as candidly as you would expect. They're not giving away major spoilers, but they are talking about the going-ons behind the scenes in the way that they can, including what Robert Downey Jr. has been doing to prep for Doctor Doom. But it's their latest round of interviews that yielded a ton of interesting details, not only about what's to come from these two films, but how we got there and what's happened in the last couple of years. And it was one detail in particular that basically confirmed what that Variety article had said all along, that they pivoted off Kang long before he ever went to trial. We're going to break down exactly what the Russos said and reading between the lines what it actually meant for a change in Marvel Studios' plans and how it kind of confirms that no matter what had happened with Jonathan Majors, we would have been getting Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom the whole time. We're breaking it all down, but first, if you could grab the subscribe button. We do daily Marvel content at the channel. That's all we do. If you're into that kind of thing, hit the sub button, leave a comment down below. That will automatically enter you to win our ongoing PS5 giveaway. The next one is right around the corner with the finale of Daredevil. Again, all you got to do be a sub, leave a comment if you want. Stick around at the end of the video. We get into all the giveaway stuff again there. Okay, so there was an article posted late yesterday by CBR.com under the headline, "Downey decided to go back to work before we decided to go back." The Russos clarify the timeline of work on Doomsday, where they go on to report, quote, "Speaking on the Jake Takes podcast, the Russos clarified when they began work on Doomsday and how they reunited with Downey Jr. on the upcoming Avengers sequel." Though the announcement of the Russos coincided with Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom announcement at San Diego Comic-Con last summer, Joe explained that the Oscar-winning actor eyed a return to the MCU before he and his brother agreed to make Doomsday. Quote, "Interestingly enough, Downey decided to go back before we decided to go back," he said. "I had dinner with Downey about a year before we agreed to do the movie, where he was trying to convince us that we should do it. We just didn't have a story to tell or a way in yet, and then it hit us." Reportedly, Robert Downey Jr. agreed to make Doomsday on the condition that he'd only make it if the Russo brothers were directing the film. Now, while that's all good and exciting, let's play the timeline game here. It was July 17th, 2024, a week or two before San Diego Comic-Con, that The Hollywood Reporter dropped the bombshell headline, "Marvel Shocker, Russo Bros in talks to direct next two Avengers movies exclusive." So we knew before the announcements this was about to happen via the Hollywood trades. Now, considering that The Hollywood Reporter would have found out because of all the working parts that go into the contract negotiations, that's why this headline says "in talks," the Russos would have agreed in principle to do this with Robert Downey and Kevin Feige before they got to the contracting phase. So even if this all turned over rather quickly, the earliest you can assume the Russos agreed was July of 2024. Now he's talking about having dinner with Robert Downey Jr., who's already agreed to come back as Doctor Doom in July, perhaps, of 2023, and only a month or two after Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania would have been released in theaters. Now, to be fair, Jonathan Majors' legal troubles would have already manifested, but the fallout from that, remember, presumed innocent until guilty, he wouldn't have made it to trial till many months after this, which means, based on the numbers alone from Quantumania, Marvel had already decided to pivot to Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom, which means there was never a chance in the first place, no matter what happened with that trial, for Jonathan Majors to get a shot to maintain Kang as the big bad. They had already decided that they were going with Doctor Doom for Secret Wars, and really all they were waiting on at that point was to get the Russos to agree to direct. That also means that Kang Dynasty was already Doomsday, and again, like about 60 or 90 days after Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania got released. Now, as I referenced during the prologue, there was an article dropped by Variety literally a week before the Marvels dropped in late 2023 claiming all of this, that Marvel Studios was having second thoughts about Kang as the big bad, basically based on the bottom line from the box office of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and they were considering bringing back all the OGs and switching to Doctor Doom. Little did we know there was overlap there, that they were bringing back an OG to be Doctor Doom, but the point being is that there were some problems with Quantumania. There were. Jonathan Majors' Kang was not one of them. And so I will just also point out that Marvel Studios waited to issue their statement that they were dropping Jonathan Majors from the Marvel Cinematic Universe until the fallout with his case. The truth is that he never had a shot either way. Even if he had been found not guilty during that case, it seems like he wouldn't have had a shot to continue as the big bad for the Multiverse Saga because Marvel Studios had already made their mind up based on the bottom line of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which is also so curious to me because they didn't put Kang in a Spider-Man movie or put him in Deadpool and Wolverine, say. they put him in an Ant-Man title, which, don't get me wrong, I love Paul Rudd and think the Ant-Man movies overall are pretty outstanding. The first one is fantastic, but at the same time, it's not got the same popularity. You're not expecting the same bottom line as, say, a Spider-Man or Deadpool and Wolverine, or, to be honest, even a Captain America Brave New World. And so maybe I'm reading too much into it, but the way that I see it here is that Marvel knew what Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania may or may not do at the box office, and we're basically counting on Jonathan Majors and Kang to carry it. And when it didn't live up to expectations, they blamed his character as well for not making up the ground that, we'll say, an Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania would never really demand, maybe in the first place, if he hadn't have been the villain. So what it really feels like is, the only way Jonathan Majors could have won is if Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania did way bigger numbers than they expected at the box office. But when it didn't, he didn't get a chance to return as Kang as the big bad for the Multiverse Saga because they blamed him for it not doing that. I think that was just an absolute fumble by Marvel, and it's also a little discouraging to hear that if he had been found not guilty at that trial, they still would have pivoted off him anyway, especially considering his performance was so good in that role. And look, you've heard the rumors here recently, we've covered them. They have competing sources right now that say Marvel is and isn't considering maybe doing his character justice in the future, which I totally think they could and should, considering Kang can always come back around because of the type of character he is. But Marvel Studios clearly here, and this has nothing to do with Jonathan Majors, Kang, or anything else, did not have a clear picture of what they were doing. That is for sure. Outside of anything else, the fact here that's revealed is that they definitely second-guessed themselves as soon as Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania came out, because they didn't just approach Robert Downey Jr. and he agreed. That probably took some time too. So if a year before July, Robert Downey Jr. was already trying to convince the Russos, that means talks were going on at all times. That means there was some gut feeling that they didn't have the right villain. And look, I feel that. I was the guy from way back in the day saying that Secret Wars should be Doctor Doom, but that was before Jonathan Majors Kang. And you can say what you want, but the news you can absolutely take from this for certain is that Marvel was really quick to change direction and second guess themselves when they didn't see the kind of response I guess they were hoping for that Jonathan Majors and Kang could do for the box office of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. And again, it just sounds like this was a total lose-lose, and at the end of the day, Marvel wanted to pivot into Doom anyway. There was really nothing Jonathan Majors or the Kang character could have done outside of maybe Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania doing like $1 billion, and then they're like, oh look, we can't pivot now, which was never going to happen in the first place. That's why I kind of say it sounds like a lose-lose. But you guys let me know all your thoughts down below. Maybe I got it totally wrong. If you see it a different way, that is totally cool. Let me know in the comments. We are still giving away the PS5s. Just be a sub and leave a comment. Find me on Instagram and Twitter at IamFires. Find me on all other platforms under the name All Fires with original music. I'd sincerely appreciate you checking that out. Thanks for checking this channel out. Stick around. We'll be posting again real soon.